The final bell rang, echoing through the hallway. Lucas slung his arm around my neck with practiced ease. "Come on, Ethan, the dining hall awaits." I grinned, patting his shoulder and suggesting he buy. He agreed without hesitation, promising a plate of their famous meatloaf before it was all gone. He then mentioned grabbing Caleb to join us. My smile faltered. I glanced toward the back of the room where Caleb was methodically packing his bag. Lucas went over, spoke a few words, and Caleb's relaxed posture stiffened. His eyes lifted, finding mine for a brief, heavy moment before I quickly looked away. A silent plea formed in my mind. "Lucas, read the room. The guy is homophobic and you're inviting him to eat with a gay guy?" Forcing someone with those views to share a meal felt inherently uncomfortable. Since Caleb transferred into our dorm this semester, we'd been alone fewer than 5 times. The rare shared meals in the crowded cafeteria were always Lucas's idea. Caleb's displeasure was a subtle but constant presence, a tightness around his eyes he never voiced. He was too polite to refuse Lucas outright, which somehow made it worse. I sighed as the 3 of us fell into step. Tray in hand, I set it down at the table. Caleb took the seat directly opposite me, Lucas beside me as usual. A lanky boy suddenly appeared before us, his face flushed. He clutched a folded paper, his posture rigid with purpose. "Ethan," he declared, "I like you." He thrust the letter toward me with both hands, bending into a slight bow. I was utterly unprepared. My instinct was to look at Caleb. He was staring fixedly at his plate, as if the very air around me was contaminated. This must be a shock to his system. Lucas, however, leaned back, scrutinizing the boy. He remarked on how everyone seemed to have designs on his best friend, questioning if they could handle someone as particular as me. He finished by proclaiming I was his, punctuating it with a pinch to my cheek. I swatted his hand away, leaning close to hiss in his ear about his loose talk. Lucas just shrugged. Turning back to the anxious boy, I managed a strained smile, thanking him but stating I wasn't looking for a relationship. The boy straightened, disappointment clear on his face before he mumbled something about admiring me from afar and hurried off. Before I could even sit, Caleb stood, his tray clattering slightly. His expression was stormy. He announced he was finished and heading back to the dorm, leaving without a backward glance, as if escaping something foul. Another silent sigh. He was clearly disgusted, and I couldn't help but blame Lucas for putting him in that position. Caleb had a reputation on campus. Valedictorian, dubbed a campus heartthrob after a candid photo from orientation week went viral. He carried himself with a quiet, contained dignity. The rumor about why he switched dorms was that his previous roommate, who was gay, had developed an obsessive infatuation, crossing serious boundaries. It had apparently cemented Caleb's aversion. I couldn't fault him. The first day we met, I sensed his immediate discomfort. Maybe it was my features or the way I wore my hair a little longer. When he introduced himself to the room, he offered firm handshakes. To me, it was just a curt nod and a terse greeting. I simply nodded back. He knew. My orientation was another landmine for him. So I gave him space. If he was at the sink in the morning, I'd wait in bed. I avoided common meal times. Somehow, whispers of our mutual dislike began to circulate. The professor's announcement about a mandatory group project with 3-person teams was met with collective dread. I'd planned to partner with Lucas, but he'd already secured a spot with his latest crush. My social reticence left me with few options, standing awkwardly near Caleb and a couple of other guys. I would have preferred Caleb, given his obvious competence, but the memory of his face in the cafeteria made me hesitate. As I moved to join another group, Caleb stepped into my path. I had to look up. He had a good few inches on me. His expression was unreadable. "We should be a team," he stated. My eyebrows shot up in surprise. He frowned, asking if I had an issue with that. I quickly denied it, agreeing with a nod. Another student joined us later. Caleb drew our topic. It was a brutal one, requiring off-campus fieldwork. My heart sank. I glanced at him. His profile was sharp, his demeanor unchanged, as if the challenge meant nothing. It gave me an irrational sense that I could rely on him. Why did I care what Caleb thought? Because he was objectively impressive. Intelligent, composed, with a steadiness that was deeply attractive. If he weren't a homophobic straight guy, I might have allowed myself to fall for him. Back at the dorm after class, I headed for the shower. Half undressed, I realized I'd forgotten my towel. The room was empty. As I struggled with a stubborn, tight-fitting shirt, the bathroom door cracked open, then immediately shut. Assuming it was Lucas, I called out for help. Silence. I tried other roommates' names. No reply. A cold realization dawned. The door opened again. This time, I'd finally wrestled the shirt off over my head. I stood there, bare-chested, meeting Caleb's startled gaze. The air grew thick. His eyes flickered over my skin, his own face tightening before he shut the door, harder this time. Mortification burned through me. Of course it was him. His scowl. He probably thought it was some pathetic attempt at seduction. I finished quickly. The moment I exited, he entered the bathroom and stayed for an exceptionally long time. The message was clear. After that, the tension was worse. The project, however, proceeded. I, the lazy one, was designated presenter. Caleb handled research. Our third member was to build the presentation. Life trudged on. Lucas's pursuit of his crush ended in spectacular failure when he discovered she was talking to a dozen other guys. He returned, heartbroken, and buried his tear-streaked face in my shoulder in the middle of the dorm, lamenting the death of true love. I tolerated his dramatics, offering platitudes about other fish in the sea. Lucas shook his head violently against my chest, his hair tickling my neck. I laughed, telling him to stop. My laughter died abruptly. That feeling was back. The distinct, crawling sensation of being watched. My eyes scanned the room. Only Caleb was present, sitting ramrod straight at his desk, eyes glued to his monitor, mouse moving steadily. No sign of distraction. I looked away quickly. Lucas mumbled into my shirt that I didn't understand, that she was his one and only. I pinched his ear, reminding him he still had me. He looked up, sniffling, and said if only I were a girl, he'd marry me and treat me right forever. A sharp click echoed as Caleb shut his laptop. He stood and walked out to the balcony. I pushed Lucas away, calling him disgusting. He just clung tighter. Moonlight outlined a tall, motionless figure through the glass door. My mind was elsewhere, chasing that elusive, unsettling feeling of eyes upon me. After Lucas calmed down, Caleb returned. I tried to ignore him, but the weight of a gaze followed me. I turned, and he was right there. He looked down, his voice low. He asked if I'd go with him to the historic district the next day. He'd heard I was good with a camera and needed someone to document some locations. I was too stunned by him initiating contact to question how he knew about my photography hobby. I agreed hastily. The equipment he produced was professional grade. Cradling the expensive camera, my nervousness faded a little. We walked for hours. I noticed he adjusted his long stride to keep me from falling too far behind. I trailed him like a duckling, capturing buildings, street scenes, and, when he wasn't looking, several shots of him. We ended up on an old stone bridge at dusk. The sky was a wash of deep orange and purple. Lost in the view, I raised the camera, framing the scene. I didn't hear him approach. The shutter clicked. I turned, and his face was suddenly inches from mine. I could see the individual lashes framing his dark eyes, the slight tension in his jaw. I froze. Another shutter sound, not from my camera, broke the spell. I stumbled back. A girl stood a few feet away, her smile vanishing as I looked at her. She gave a quick nod. "Let's go back," Caleb said, already walking. Back in the dorm, Lucas showed me the post trending on the campus forum. The photo, taken from that girl's angle on the bridge, used the sunset to create an illusion. The space between Caleb and me had vanished. It looked like we were kissing. The comments were a mix of shock and speculation. Was Caleb dating? Who was that? A guy? Wasn't he homophobic? Wasn't there bad blood between them? My face burned. Lucas dragged a chair over, his leg bouncing nervously. He demanded to know if it was true, if we were together, if I had feelings for him. I denied it, calling the photo a misunderstanding. Lucas's relief was palpable. He ruffled my hair, telling me it was for the best, that someone like me would get chewed up in the dating world, especially with my preferences. He claimed to know how guys think and vowed to keep the wolves at bay. I told him he was being ridiculous. Sometimes his protectiveness felt more like ownership. Caleb walked in. I tensed, hoping he hadn't seen the post. He showed no sign of it. I breathed a silent prayer he never would. Later, alone, I scrolled through my hidden folder of Caleb photos. Was it my imagination? Or did Lucas now watch me even more closely? Days passed. To my astonishment, Caleb began joining us for meals. The icy disdain seemed to have thawed. Lucas was wary but silent. The project deadline loomed. Our third member had ghosted us. No presentation, no replies. Panicked, I spent a late night hunched over my laptop, trying to teach myself design software. A shadow fell over my desk. Caleb's voice asked what I was doing. I explained, embarrassed by the crude slides on my screen. He frowned, stating bluntly that it wasn't my job. He walked away, then returned with his phone, displaying his contact QR code. We hadn't even exchanged numbers. After adding him, he sent a single message: "Get some sleep." The next morning, a flawless presentation file waited in our chat. He'd done it. All of it. In that moment, he was my savior. This supposedly cold, homophobic guy had silently carried the entire project. Seizing a moment of courage later, I stammered an offer to buy him dinner as thanks. I expected a polite refusal. Instead, he simply said, "Okay." The restaurant by the river was nice, but the silence between us was suffocating. I drank too much trying to fill it. Leaving, I swayed on my feet. Caleb caught me, his hand firm on my arm. His skin was cool through his shirt. The warm hallway lighting softened his features. I knew I had to get away, or I'd do something foolish. I mumbled a goodbye, insisting I was fine. He didn't let go. With a quiet sigh, he pulled me into a secluded alcove, closing the door and crowding me against the wall. The air left my lungs. "What are you doing?" I whispered. He didn't answer, just stared down at me. Then, as if defeated, he buried his face in the curve of my neck. His breath was hot against my skin. His voice was muffled, aching. "Why do you always avoid me?" What did I do? I was paralyzed. Avoid him? He was the one who flinched. He was the one who couldn't stand to be near me. I tried to form a sentence. He lifted his head, his gaze dropping to my mouth. The kiss was sudden, tasting faintly of the wine we'd shared. My thoughts dissolved into a fuzzy static. The car ride back was silent, a chasm of space between us on the seat. My mind was rebooting. In the dorm, Lucas pounced, concerned by my flushed face. Caleb calmly stated I just had some wine, that we'd been together. Lucas's eyes narrowed. I fled to my bunk, heart hammering. After lights out, the mattress dipped. Caleb climbed in beside me. I whispered a frantic protest. "Couldn't sleep," he murmured. "I kept thinking about you." He asked what we were now. I fumbled, suggesting it was just something that happened. He insisted I hadn't pushed him away, that I seemed receptive. He described the flush on my skin, the hint of moisture in my eyes, calling it beautiful. I told him to stop. He asked again, persistent. I finally whispered that he could define it. He nodded once. "Then we're boyfriends," he stated, and kissed me again, slowly, thoroughly, until I was lightheaded. He commented gently on my lack of skill, promising to teach me. The lesson lasted most of the night. At one point, Breathless, I gasped a reminder about his supposed homophobia. "Not with you," he breathed into the dark. "The first time I saw you, I thought you were the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. But you always seemed to slip away. I thought I'd done something wrong." We fell asleep entangled. The presentation was a success. Caleb's calm presence in the audience steadied me. Our missing partner showed up, but Caleb had already spoken to the professor. The guy received a 0. To celebrate the end of exams, the whole dorm went for burgers and beers. Amid the chatter about grades and professors, Caleb was quiet. I caught him looking at me. His lips formed silent words. "What are you thinking about?" Then, "Let's step outside." The night air was cool. On the sidewalk under a street lamp, he leaned in and brushed a kiss against the corner of my mouth. I flushed, scolding him for the public display. He just smiled, lacing his fingers through mine. A voice cut through the night. Lucas stood a few feet away, his smile brittle. He asked what was going on. His eyes locked on our joined hands. I took a breath. "We're together. Caleb is my boyfriend." Lucas's face went pale. He asked if it was true, his voice strained. He turned on Caleb, accusing him of being a straight guy pretending, of tricking me. Caleb's brow furrowed. "I never said I was straight. I disliked my old roommate because he was a stalker, not because he was gay. My feelings for Ethan have nothing to do with his orientation and everything to do with him." Lucas looked to me, a silent question. I nodded. His jaw clenched. He glared at Caleb, him that if he ever hurt me, he'd regret it. He turned and kicked a trash can, the clang echoing down the street. "He's in love with you," Caleb said softly. "I know," I replied. The realization was settling in, uncomfortable and sad. "He lacks courage," Caleb continued. "With himself and with you. We had the same problem. If I'd been brave sooner, I could have held you much earlier." I called him shameless. He just looked at me, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "I'm glad I found my courage," he said, squeezing my hand. "So I can do this." Weeks later, I was using his tablet. The screen lit up, displaying the infamous forum photo as his wallpaper. I confronted him, asking when he'd seen it. Immediately, he admitted. "I was the second person to see it." "What do you mean?" "I bought it from the girl who took it. I saw the camera flash. I knew we were being photographed." My mind raced. My own secret photos. Had he known all along? And the post? I asked. "I posted it," he said, utterly calm. "You were so distant. Having that proof, even fake, that we were connected, it felt good for a while." I was speechless. All my worry for his comfort, and he was the architect. He visited my bunk most nights. The dorm mostly pretended not to notice. Lucas's glares continued. In the dark, I'd whisper that he had no shame. "If I had shame, I wouldn't be here with you," he'd counter. "I used to just watch you. Before we were friends online, I'd check your profile constantly, see what you'd posted, what you ate." "So that's how you knew about the camera," I murmured. He confirmed it, adding that even if I hadn't known photography, he would have invented another reason to get me alone that day. It was a rare chance. I admitted I used to watch him, too. "Now you can look all you want," he said, his lips finding mine in the dark. "You can say my name, too." I'd push at his chest, repeating my accusation. "If I'm already shameless," he'd whisper, his breath hot against my ear, "let me be more so. Move off campus with me. Out there, everything can be out in the open." He was lying. It wasn't for my freedom, but for his. Yet, when I looked into those earnest, smiling eyes, every argument died. I gave in. We found a small apartment near campus. Waking in his arms, making dinner together in the narrow kitchen, sharing a blanket on the couch during movie nights, the suppressed laughter and affection finally had room to breathe. Caleb was still shameless, and I still called him on it. But in the quiet of our own space, listening to his heartbeat in the deep night, I understood completely. This shameless, sprawling happiness was everything.